Hi, this is Erik Berg with Care National. Thanks for joining me for a brief resume clinic today. I'm going to show you some steps to take your resume from the hiring manager's inbox to the interview stage, and we're basically going to focus on 4 simple steps to help your resume become more consistent, more complete, concrete, and concise. I have an example here of a current candidate that I am working with. I'm going to be sending this over to the hiring manager later today. As you can see, this person has some great experience, more than 25 years of nursing experience, but it's hard to see all of that with as jumbled as it is right now. Nothing really stands out. We want to make this resume pop and make it obvious to that hiring manager that they need to interview this nurse. The first step we're going to take is to improve this resume's consistency. If we scroll down and take a look, this nurse has over 25 years experience with the VA. However, there's only 2 lines of information about what this person has really done as a memory care coordinator and case manager, as well as med-surg. There are some additional examples down here in professional experience, however, that definitely deserve repeating and putting up at the top. We want to make sure that the hiring manager that reads this sees some transferable experience, sees some things that they can see a complex case manager doing. First of all, initiating and developing programs here. These involve non-clinical caregivers as well as families and making connections with community-based resources. All these things very important with a complex case manager and specifically in the job description that we are applying to. We're going to take these and move them up so that they're going to be right under the nursing experience here. Don't worry about repeating information. Repetition is the key to that hiring manager remembering the important parts of your resume, that transferable experience. Next up, we want to tackle making this resume more complete. We want to show this hiring manager of the complex case management position that we're applying to that this nurse, with their 15 years as a memory care coordinator and case manager, has that necessary experience. Naturally, anyone with a diagnosis of dementia and any other chronic health concern would qualify as a complex case, but we want to make sure that everybody who touches this resume, it just jumps off the page, shouts at them, hey, this nurse is the one that you want to interview. She's been doing it for 15 years in probably one of the more difficult demographics, working with people who can't remember the instructions that you give them. So I went and looked up the job description online for a patient care coordinator with the VA. I wasn't able to find one specifically for dementia or memory care, but some of these overview and summary duties are going to be exactly what we need to fill out some of the basic parts of the job description that shows up in the job that we're applying for, that complex case management position. I'm just going to copy and paste those in here. I'm going to reformat them when we get to the consistency part, but right now we've got some meat to add to this. We've got the examples now about some of the special things that this nurse has done specifically with complex case management. Now we have the meat and potatoes, just the basic day-to-day activities that also are going to check off a lot of the boxes on the basic activities for the complex care coordinator position that we're applying to. Now we're moving on to making this resume concrete. We're going to make it rock solid, something that lines up almost exactly with the job description based on what I talked with the nurse about as far as their examples of the great work that they've done. We want to make sure that the hiring manager sees A, B, C through X, Y, Z as being just the same as the job description that they are trying to fill. On top of that, we want to make sure that there's going to be some examples that jump off that page, show that this nurse is special, a cut above, things that hiring manager is going to want to talk with this nurse about in that first interview, things that are going to make that nurse memorable. I've taken the job description from our client here. 70% of the time is going to be pretty standard case management, obviously working with high risk and more complex medical situations than regular case management. But we want to make sure that we still check off all those boxes, show that this nurse is competent and going to be a great fit, someone that's easy to train and going to more or less hit the ground running. So let's take out all the stuff that doesn't show that. First of all, handling HIPAA information, ability to positively influence others, and meet regulatory and agency policy and procedures. If you can't do that, putting that in the job description or putting that in the resume isn't going to help. So we're going to ignore that. We're going to look at the things that really are important, the real day-to-day work that shows the difference between an expert and a novice. We want to show high-risk, complex medical and psychosocial issues. We want to show linkage to appropriate community resources. We want to show advocacy for members. And we want to show developing and implementing initiatives. We're very lucky. This nurse is great. She has already developed and initiated a couple different programs. We want to ride those, as well as making sure that we check off all these boxes. Now, there are some examples that I got from this nurse during our initial interview that I'm going to include in this resume. I'm going to make sure that they go in under the job description as well as in the cover sheet that we send over. We want to make sure that that repetition really makes these facts concrete in the hiring manager's mind. Alright, so now we're ready to look at the concise finished draft of the resume. I've done a little bit of work behind the scenes. Obviously didn't need you to see every one of my typos that I had to correct, but here's what a good, tight resume will look like. Once again, this nurse has more than 25 years of experience working with the Veterans Administration, more than 15 as a complex case manager, primarily focused on memory care and dementia. So we wanted to make sure that we highlighted the last 15 years of experience best as possible. It's well understood what a surgical staff nurse does, med-surg nurses do, so we really don't need to go into detail here. We want to keep that focus not on the bulk of the resume. We want to keep it focused on what is best, what's going to best match up with that job description that we had over here. We want to make sure that we're showing providing case management to members with high risk or complex medical and psychosocial problems, providing linkages to appropriate community resources, advocacy, developing and implementing initiatives, meeting regulatory and agency policies. We don't really need to go too much into HIPAA, interpersonal skills, any of those soft descriptions. It's really just kind of fluff, more or less, if you put it in your resume. If you have some strong examples of where you demonstrated those skills, you want to put those in your cover letter or put them in a specific part of your development if it was part of a program, something that you may have worked on in your job as a program. So we've got the subject matter expert for technical representative for adult daycare facilities. That's straight off the nurse's resume. Ensured medical and psychosocial needs of patients are met. Right off the job description. It's obviously part of the VA's job description for all care coordinators. Directed the establishment, implementation, and coordination of complex care. We got that right from the VA's job description as well. Directed the work of nursing staff, non-clinical staff, and partner organizations. This is something we expanded on a little bit. We want to make sure that we're showing all the comprehensive different parts that are used in complex case management. It's taken from the job description that we found online, but we added a couple details there to really spell it out. So someone who's not a clinician, doesn't have a strong background in complex case management, can take a look at this resume and say, all right, this nurse looks like she passes those gates that we need to get through before we put it on the hiring manager's desk. Point of contact and coordinator for nursing staff. We got that, important to be a good communication hub in this role. Provided support in identifying problem areas. This is also right off that job description from the VA. This is exactly what they're looking for when we're talking about regulatory compliance. Not the most important part, but a good detail, especially since it's straight from the job description of the job that this nurse did previously, and it's on the new job description. Here we've got a couple details from the interview that I had on the phone with the nurse. Awarded advanced practice RN of the year 2016. That's great. Definitely worth a bullet point. Initiated the No One Dies Alone program and the Dementia Tailored Care programs. Each are worth their own little bullet point. We want to talk about planting a seed, essentially, for that hiring manager to ask additional questions. This isn't something that first blush HR review is going to really get into, but the hiring manager that's going to get this once it gets through that gatekeeper is going to look at this information and say, I want to ask some questions about this, and if they don't, the nurse during the interview can bring these up as examples of initiatives and programs that they have developed, and then get into it. It's just a good way to keep that visual reminder in front of that hiring manager as much as possible. We also wanted to make it known here that this nurse has done plenty of home visits, daily through 2008, and then weekly after that. Home visits are a small but significant part of this complex case management role with my client, and I wanted to make sure that they didn't think that this nurse hasn't been out in the field. Granted, this is 10 years ago that it was a daily job, but this nurse has kept their skills sharp, still out in the field on a weekly basis, and I want to make sure that that is known and really shows up that this isn't somebody who's afraid to get in their car, go out and meet with members that need that face-to-face. So once again, just to sum up, this was the job description that we worked from, the target job description, the job that we want this nurse to get an interview for. We identified a few key factors, eliminated some things that are hard to define, soft skills things that are not going to show up real well on a resume unless you personally have an example where you directly influenced another person in the organization with these skills. They're probably best to leave off. They're just a little too generic. We had several examples that came from the job description that we found online for the Veterans Administration Care Coordinator that we were able to use. This is the job that this nurse has done, even though we didn't have it in the initial version. We were able to quickly go out and find that online. This is something that is not necessarily the best way to write your resume. It's better for you to be able to explain the job in your own words, but if you've had several jobs or it's been many years since you've had that job, it's usually a good idea to go out and work from that as a template and then customize it, as we've done here with some examples of things that are memorable. Finally, we went through the 4 steps. We made it consistent. As you can see, the formatting's a little bit better now, a little bit easier to read, and it also directs your eye to the things that we really want to talk about in that. We don't want to go through a resume review that has a hiring manager basically going through the last 20 years of your experience and asking, what you did at this med surg and what you did at that ICU. It's a pretty well-established job. You don't really need to go into detail. Let's talk about what you want to be doing next, not what you've done in the past. It's complete. We were able to get all the information that we needed to represent this job, showing that this nurse is going to be a great fit for the next complex case management job. It's concrete. We have some examples. We have some definitive language that comes from the VA. We have some definitive examples that came from the nurse. And finally, it's concise. We were able to boil down almost 25 years of experience down to 1 page. We were able to make the education quickly stand out, make those certifications really show up as being important. Now that they're not on the 3rd or 4th page, they're on that 1st page. When a hiring manager is going to take a look at this, they're going to say, this person has a lot of experience. I wonder if they're going to be too set in their ways with the VA. If all that they've done is work for one employer, sometimes it's hard for people to break out of that mold. This is going to help point them in that other direction, saying, wow, this person has continued their education. They obviously have had their mind and their professional experiences exposed to other ways of doing things, to best practices, to what some of the trends in the industries are. And on top of that, they're a good student. They've been able to earn these certifications, earn these degrees. They didn't just go to a conference, they actually mastered the subject material. This is probably the best we can do for this candidate, and I'm pretty happy with what we were able to accomplish today. If you have any questions or are interested in setting up a 15-minute resume clinic with me or one of the other recruiters here at Care National, we'd be more than happy to get in touch with you. Just contact us through the website and send us a copy of your resume. We'd be more than happy to reach out and help you tune your resume for that case management, utilization review, or quality improvement job. This is what we specialize in, and we're more than happy to help qualified nurses take those next steps in their career. Thanks so much.